I still have this issue too, because I get really upset when people like kind of put these barriers in place where it's like, you have to do things a certain way. You have to like start, and cybersecurity is an IT problem and this and that. You know, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think IT is part of it, but cybersecurity is a people problem. This dude, Simeon Kakpovi, gets on the stage and he's like, I work at Microsoft Threat Intelligence. I built this game, and if you can play this game, you can do my job. And I'm like, oh, wait, what? That sounds interesting. Don't know what threat intelligence is, but I like games.
Yeah.
This sounds like a cool game. I checked it out, and that was the moment. If you just talk to me, like, I will show you that this is for real. Because a lot of people didn't believe me. A lot of people were skeptical. Like, I would like interview with some companies, and like I would walk them through like something I built for KC7, but I felt like they thought I was cheating. You know, they would ask me like other questions. They try to trip me up, and I'm like, okay, you're welcome to challenge me, because I am here for the challenge. I'm not here to do the easy job.
Buckle up, crew. Today's guest took an unconventional path into cybersecurity. He transitioned from repairing watches to landing his first cybersecurity role on Microsoft's Ghost team. Jibby Saetang hunts threats for a living. As a security researcher on the Ghost team at Microsoft, he tracks advanced adversaries and helps defend global enterprises from cyber threats. But that's not all. He's also the threat intel content lead at KC7, the cyber detective game, a platform that provides free, hands-on cybersecurity training through immersive real-world scenarios. When he's not investigating attacks or building learning experiences, you'll find him on stage at conferences like SANS, B-Sides, and Blue Team Con, sharing insights on threat intelligence, adversary behavior, and the power of gamified security education. But what really makes Jibby's story stand out? You'd think someone with this kind of resume must have climbed the traditional IT ladder, right? Well, think again. Just over a year before landing his role at Microsoft, Jibby was repairing watches. No formal IT experience, no industry certifications, and no college degree. Instead of following the expected path, he dove headfirst into KC7, turning it into more than just a study tool. It became an obsession. Chasing leads, making connections, and thinking like a real investigator. KC7 didn't just teach him cybersecurity. It rewired the way he thought, pushing him to question everything and approach problems like a detective. Now he's not just working in cybersecurity, he's on a mission to make it more accessible and to help others carve their own unconventional path into the industry. Let's welcome Jibby Saetang to KO's Launchpad.
How long have you been living in LA for?
This time around for about 10 years now.
About 10 years?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've had multiple stints in LA.
Yeah.
Okay. We mentioned this before, so what broke up the two stints in LA?
Yeah, so born and raised in LA, grew up in LA. Like I ended up going to Thailand in my like early 20s on a vacation, I thought. And it turned out to be a pretty long vacation.
Yeah.
Spent a good amount of time there before moving back to LA. Yeah. A couple of years exploring Southeast Asia. Yeah.
What were some of your favorite places that you had checked out while you were in Southeast Asia?
Oh man, all of it is great. Like I just love culture.
Yeah.
And just like how like you could just get on a plane and like an hour away, it's just completely different. So like going to like Burma was awesome. Because it's like that's like places that people don't really go to, right? Like super like off the beaten path. And, you know, guidebook doesn't really get you very far. Language is really hard. So it's like everything is just like learning how to mime, you know, to get what you need. So it's like a real adventure kind of, you know, place.
Yeah.
So that's cool. But like, yeah, like food in Vietnam is amazing. And the people are just awesome, you know?
Yeah, we love pho. We love boca.
Yeah, like the sandwiches, like everything about that place is just fantastic, right? And they're like, yeah, even dishes that you don't get to have here. And like you think about like authentic Asian food with that like really fresh coconut milk. And I think like, there's like nothing better than that.
That is so true. I love coconut milk, some mango sticky rice. Oh, incredible. Some khao soi. So if you had like maybe top 3 memories of that chapter of, you know, moving to Asia in your earlier 20s, like what would they be?
One is, so like, you know, I was younger back then. And in Bangkok, they used to have like people who brought elephants into the city to like kind of raise money.
Yeah.
And I didn't know at the time that it was kind of like animal cruelty. I was like, oh, an elephant walking through town. Like you never see that growing up in LA, right?
Yeah.
So that was like very exciting to me. So like I'd convinced this guy, right? Like to allow me to ride his elephant around like Siam Square, which is like a shopping center area, like where all the teenagers hang out in Bangkok. And so like I'd convinced this guy, I gave him like a couple $100 baht, like, you know, I want to ride the elephant through this area and drink a beer. And that was like one of like the best things I've ever done in my life. It was so cool.
That is actually like a movie kind of memory right there. Like if someone was looking back on their life and they were thinking like, it was a good time riding an elephant in Thailand. Were there any other memories outside of like your time in Thailand that really stuck out to you?
You know, traveling through like Burma and staying at like the historic hotel where like, I stayed in the room that George Orwell stayed in. And so like, that was really cool. Just like kind of, it felt like such a throwback. Like back when people used to travel by like steamship, because there was like one room just for like your trunks and all that kind of stuff to stay in. That, and there was like a butler. And it was like $60 a night. You get a butler. It's like, yeah, right? It's just like like a really kind of amazing experience. And I still think back to that. It's like, it was such a cool time.
I love that. I love that. So I'd love to unpack a little bit more behind like what was the motivation behind the trip to Thailand? And even like if you could take us back even further, like what was it like coming up as young Jibby? Yeah,
so, growing up in LA, Thai parents, they worked all the time. So I pretty much raised my sister, right, at home. Grew up in a pretty rough part of LA, and so kind of had to learn how to be like street smart pretty quickly. Right. But yeah, like I guess like growing up, I didn't really have much of a chance to be a kid, right? And so like I think there was this point in my life where I felt like I need to go out and just kind of explore and do my own thing and not have that all that responsibility of being the adult or the caretaker. And so that's what led me to like going to Thailand, and it was just like this chance thing. Like I'd gone as a kid with my parents, but it was always like, oh, we'll go see like relatives. And then it just ended up being hanging out at different restaurants with old people the whole time. And it didn't feel very exciting, right? And then there was one day I was at a coffee shop and I heard these two guys, white guys, talking about their trip to Thailand. They'd gone to these different islands and then all these different things. And I was just like, oh, wow, like I didn't even know that existed. And here I am, like my parents are from Thailand. I didn't even know we had islands down there. So like I went, got like a guidebook, and I'm like, I'm going. And so I booked the flight out there and went out there with like $200. And I'm like, you know, when I run out of money, I'll fly back to LA. And it was like, I think 7-8 years that I spent out there.
Around what time is this?
Oh, this was this was like 15 years ago. 17 years ago.
Okay, so we're looking at like before the '08 crash, essentially. Okay, gotcha.
It was a good time back then.
So I want to unpack a little bit more about that. So I share a similar sentiment. Like I pretty much had to raise my sister when I was growing up. You know, single parent household. We had a huge family around, but it's not quite the same to have a lot of family around as opposed to just having like one direct parent. And when you're the elder, wait, are you the elder sibling? So when you're the eldest brother and it's your responsibility to take care of your sister, I'm curious what your perspective was on like the conceptualized view of a sibling's bond when you're more their parent as opposed to like a friend.
Yeah, you know, that's like a good question because I think like these are things I didn't understand at all until I got much older. Because it just felt like this was how all my friends grew up. We all had that same thing where we were just expected to, that was our job basically. So like even, you know, at like 6th grade, you have a job already. You're not getting paid for it, but it's your responsibility to like, you know, walk your sister home, you know, get the meal ready, you know, get her through dinner, help her do her homework, all that kind of stuff. All that stuff, right? And like, that just felt like normal life to me. Right. And like all my friends lived that way. So that's all I knew. It wasn't until I got older and I met like other families, you know, that weren't like immigrant Asian families. I'm like, oh, dude, you get to just play video games and your parents help you with your homework. Oh my God. Like that it kind of blew my mind.
Such an awakening, right?
Right. It blew my mind that like, oh, like other people actually have parents that support them in other ways other than just financially feeding them. Right. Guide them, teach them, you know, you can go to them with questions. I would never ask my dad a question. Yeah, he'd just get upset. Like, figure it out, man.
It's such a like conservative Asian value, I feel, to just have those like archetypes of personalities where like you've got a very stoic father that just probably doesn't talk too much. Also, there's the component, the language barrier. And then you've got a mother who typically tends to do a lot of the caretaking and like just taking care of the home. So what I've learned from that experience, also similar to you, it wasn't until I was much older that I realized like the value of sort of that upbringing. One of the things I took away from that is that even though they may not necessarily be conveying their love through like words of affirmation, but they do it through like acts of service, taking care of things in the household. And I think I very much adopted that too. Would you say it's the same?
A little bit. I mean, I have my own kid now. And so like there are some things that Well, I think most things I do differently. I think most things I do differently because I think, there was a long period of time where I really struggled, kind of just like with like emotional intelligence, just like things like that, like understanding like to like take a step back and not be so like reactive.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's just because I grew up in a very reactive household where we just, everything just like ends up being an argument. And I just, it was a moment when I had a friend. This was before I had a kid, and he talked to his daughter, and he just spoke to her like a regular person. And I was like, it never struck me that you could do that. Like I'd only thought of like you have a kid and you just yell at them, and that's the example you see with a lot of parents, not just Asian parents, but in general. Like there's this very kind of contentious relationship between like child and parent.
Yes.
Right, where you kind of tell them what you want them to do, they don't want to do it, and then you just get upset, right? And so like I think I really focus on how my kid feels. Like that's like the biggest thing for me is like, how do you feel? Talk about your feelings. To the point where even my wife is like, I think you go too far to overcompensate for your lack of this growing up. And I'm like, I don't know. Like I don't have a good kind of role model for this. So I'm just kind of learning it in real time. Right.
I hear that.
Yeah.
And I respect that. I'm also someone who tends to over-rotate. Like I hear some feedback and I'm just like, okay, let's just go to the opposite end of the spectrum. And I think the journey of maturity for me is learning the balance of perspective. But just like you, like we're all figuring stuff out as we go. If we weren't raised with the personas who set these positive examples that we need, that we look up to, then for a lot of people, we're just figuring it out. Yeah. And we got to do that the best we can. So what would you say are some of the main qualities that like you took away from your parents?
What I do is like, I work hard.
Yeah.
Like I work and I'm not afraid of that. And I don't shy away from like a challenge because it's always been challenging for me as a kid. Like they would just like, you have to make this phone call because my mom's not like, she doesn't want to talk to like the doctor. Right. And I'm like, I don't, it's like, you just get thrown into a challenge and you just have to figure it out. Right. And there is no saying no.
Yeah.
Right. And so, for better or for worse, that's who I am. Like, I don't say no to things and I will just assume like I will take care of it. So in any kind of job role I have, like I will raise my hand and volunteer to take on a challenge that nobody else wants to do. And that just comes from like, growing up in that house where it's like, it was always expected of me. Yeah. There's good that comes with that, but there's also bad that comes with that. Cause then there's also like that, I never feel like that positive feedback that, oh, I did a great job. Right. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I could just do more. Yeah. Because I didn't get that like feeling of like, I accomplished it. So.
And then we end up being very, I think, negatively motivated. I think that's something I've had to unlearn over the years is that I don't always have to traumatize myself by reusing the same painful phrases that I heard growing up. Like I can positively affirm myself and it ends up being a lot more healthy. So I feel like it's kind of beautiful to come from like a similar background and learn through the passage of life that like we can be different. And I love seeing that you're actively practicing the lessons that you took away from childhood. Otherwise, we just end up perpetuating the same mistakes and it becomes one vicious cycle. So it's really tough to be successful academically when you have a younger sibling and you have parents that don't speak the language as effectively. And on top of that, like your younger sibling is more like your child than they are your younger sibling. So I'm curious to hear, like, how were you able to balance all that pressure in life growing up with academics?
I was someone who was very lucky. I was actually like super like good at school and I didn't have to put much effort into it. Like everything just kind of came to me naturally. Yeah. And that becomes a problem later on when things get tough. Yeah. Because when things are too easy when you're little, you don't learn how to overcome adversity. And when you first get to that stage where things get hard, it's hard to come back out. Because it really does shake like what you know. Yeah, your foundation of what you think you're capable of. Yeah, and so like, so that was me. Like I grew up all through high school, like straight A's, like I aced everything. I never like studied. Like I just like, it was just like, I just knew the answer, right? And I just look at a test, I'm like, oh, I already know the answer without even reading the question sometimes. Like, I just had this sense for it. And then I ended up at UC Berkeley, and in my first semester, I'm like, dude, this is hard. This is hard, and I've never had to do anything hard before in my life. And it kind of really shook me to the point where like I didn't want to leave the apartment sometimes because I was like, oh man, this is like, I can't face the day because I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And like, I don't have the tools. Like, I don't have like, like nobody ever taught me how to like kind of overcome not being successful. Right. Yeah. So that was like a big kind of like, I guess like, oh, that's like a very humbling experience, and it really kind of changes the way you look at things. And you realize, oh, okay, like, yeah, there are things that you have to do to achieve. You have to work sometimes. Yeah. Right.
So what advice would you give to someone out there who's used to being that big fish in a small pond that doesn't really have to try all that hard, who may be entering another educational or professional stratosphere where they're going to need to kick it up a notch? They may not necessarily be ready for that.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to give advice because I don't even think I'm like really good at that either. You know,
I'd argue you are, just from the conversation so far. But I'll let you cook.
You know, it's like I think what it is like when you know that you're not alone in those feelings, it helps. And I think having friends and building a community, and being able to be honest with your friends is like a very important thing. And I think that's something that you have to learn, right? Because I don't think like for people who are naturally good at things, we're not good at like asking questions. You know, you don't get used to that. Yeah. And you're not used to kind of just showing that vulnerable side to people. So I think the biggest thing that you can do is just to be honest and ask for help. Yeah. Right. And let people know as soon as like, you know, hey, I'm starting to like struggle here, or I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. I need help. That's like the biggest thing. Yeah. And I'm still learning that myself. Like I say that and I'm like, I don't ask for help, and I should. And I have peers around me nowadays that they're all like 1,000 times smarter than me, but I will bang my head against the wall because I feel like I can figure it out at some point, right? I'm still learning that.
At some point, that can also give you an edge because you have that level of persistent and that grind set instilled in you that you're willing to go to lengths that other people just aren't. So I think there's like a dichotomy here that needs to be balanced, but I think you're 100% right, especially when you're early in career, earlier in your education. You need to learn that nobody is going to come save you. Yep. Like you need to learn that you need to advocate for yourself, and when you don't know, like, don't just sit in that pain by yourself because it becomes like this recursive loop of just pain, and you spiral like lower and lower by yourself. For sure. Really, the only way that I can think of to save yourself from a spiral like that, in my own personal opinion, hit the gym, get that dopamine into your brain. 2, surround yourself with other people who are feeling that same experience and like raise yourselves up together. A subcomponent of that is be very mindful with who you surround yourself with, because you can surround yourself with people who love to sit and wallow in their own misery and don't do anything about it. But on the contrast, you want to find people that understand that they're in a place where they have a lot further to go, and they actively put in the work to improve. So being around Group B, the improvement group, as opposed to, you know, the sit in sorrow group, 2 different universes there. So just like to call that out.
No, that's super important. I also find that like sometimes like when you start feeling like you're sinking, it's nice to like kind of have like stuff in your pocket that you know you're good at, just to kind of build that confidence back up. So like little wins here and there. And then you're like, okay, you know, and you kind of get that kind of positive momentum going, and then they kind of push you forward to getting the bigger things. I used to do that a lot when I would fix watches. Because I taught myself how to do it. So it was like, sometimes I get to these problems I couldn't figure out. And then like, what happens is like, you start getting frustrated, right? And then once you start getting frustrated, you're not going to solve it. Because then you become heavy-handed, things start falling apart. And it's kind of like you said, you start to spiral down. So I would always kind of have like easy tasks that I would save. So when I would get, okay, I'm stuck here. I'm going to take a break from this one. And I'll go do these easy ones. And okay, now my hands are moving, my mind's moving, I'm flowing, I'm feeling good. Then you go try this. Yeah. And I noticed that a lot of times that would help get me like, I can do it. Because like, you're like, you have like that kind of positive motion going, you know, like you're flowing, you're kind of getting in the zone. You can do that problem now that you couldn't do like earlier in the day when you weren't like feeling good about it.
I love that. So I love that concept a lot. So I also follow the same sort of like mindset. If I'm in a rut, I'll do something super tiny. And I think I've heard this principle. It's called the snowball effect. Like a snowball doesn't start off as like this huge grand boulder of a snowball, right? Like it starts off as a tiny snowflake that catches momentum and becomes 2 snowflakes, then 4, then 8. And then before you know it, it goes from being this tiny little speck to being this grand thing. But it didn't start off as grand. What's important is to know that you have to set things in motion, and that motion will sometimes carry you to your goal. It's so hard. I think it's the law of physics. Things that tend to stay in motion stay in motion. Things that are at rest tend to stay at rest.
Yeah.
Man, I love that. I love that. So walk me through your journey, like academically, from Berkeley. Like, do you end up crushing it there?
No. So my dad has a stroke, and then so I go and I take care of like business. My parents had a jewelry store, and that was like the family business.
Yeah.
And so I just like took care of the family. Yeah, and that's what I ended up doing. I taught myself how to fix watches, taught myself how to fix jewelry.
Yeah.
Like we had some like Cambodian like jewelers that my dad would work with, and I called them and said, "Hey, I need to learn what you're doing." And they're like, "Yeah, come on down." So I drove out to like Fullerton, 45-minute drive from LA, like, and I spent like 2 hours with them. And they're like, "You're a jeweler," and I'm like, "What do you mean? I don't even know what I'm doing." And they're like, "That's how we learned." You know, they're like, refugees. Yeah. Like that's what you do in life. You just do it, and they're don't worry about it. Like, if you make a mistake, we'll help you. Right? So I go to work the next day and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm a jeweler. Somebody leaves a ring for me to size.
Yeah.
The first time I ever take a flame to the ring, half of it disappears, like the shank, like the bottom part, this part, gone. And I'm like, oh my God. Luckily, the lady came back and I was like, you know what? I'm really sorry. Like I ran out of oxygen. I couldn't finish the ring. Is it okay if you pick it up tomorrow? And she was just like, yeah, no problem. Right? I'm freaking out, like close up the shop early and drive out there. And then they help me rebuild the ring. But they're like, you do it. We'll show you how to do it, but you have to actually do it yourself. I learned so much in that day. I never made that mistake ever again, obviously. But like sometimes you just have to learn things the hard way, right? And I think that's what they were trying to teach me.
Yeah,
right?
And I love that because I tend to sway back and forth on the pendulum. Sometimes I'll be all theory based, where I try and like amass as much knowledge through theory as possible. But I think later on into my entrepreneurial journey, I've met more and more very successful entrepreneurs that said like, stop reading the books, get your ass to work. Like put your nose to the grindstone and learn on the job. That's the best way to do it. And I'm like, but these books, they're so good. And they're like, okay, well, you're going to keep reading your life away. And that's when it was like a light bulb moment for me. I just need to go out there, do it, make all the mistakes I possibly can. And we figured it out along the way.
Yeah.
So for you, did you have any inkling or interest in working in the family business when you were growing up?
No, not at all. Not at all. Like I was like, I was just a regular kid. I played like, well, not really regular, not for an Asian guy. Like I played ice hockey, like I played like weird sports. So I was kind of like this kind of outsider that never really fit into like, the Asians like in my neighborhood. Right. Like I was into punk rock when everybody else was into like rap music.
Yeah, name some artists.
From punk?
Yeah.
I used like old school punk because that's what my cousin was into. So I was like big into like Ramones, like Bad Brains, like as like a hardcore band. Like just like Minor Threat was like a thing I really liked. Yeah.
Yeah, I really got into like punk and alternative when my uncle, we used to play RuneScape together. And by we, I mean he would play and I would watch him. And then whenever he was in the restroom, I would like sneak in a few minutes of game time. But he was a huge like influence on me from a musical perspective. So I think that's one of the benefits of having like a bigger family. Because I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment with like up to 15 people. Like there's just so many influences. It can get kind of hectic. But you can take the best from everyone and then just leave the rest.
So how do you know what's the best then when you're that age?
You don't.
Yeah.
You absolutely don't. I think you just kind of key in to the things that interest you, the things that like fuel that inner fire, and then you just keep pursuing that. I would also realize that I would have some songs on repeat back to back to back for like an hour, and my uncle would look at me like, what is wrong with you? Like, how do you do that? But I think that's just kind of how my mind works. Like I find something, I lock in on it, and I do nothing but that until I get really good at it or I get bored, I move on to the next one.
Yeah,
so
similar.
I'm noticing that trend in people who work in cybersecurity. You got to be able to zoom in and then zoom out and then zoom back in.
Yeah.
So for you as a watchmaker, like how much time do you spend doing that, and what were some of your favorite memories of that experience?
I spent a good amount of time doing that. It was like on and off, right? I did it for a little bit, went to Thailand, came back and did it again. So I had like this kind of break in between. So my dad had the stroke, and then he was like, okay to work. So, I'm taking a vacation, and then it's like, well, I'm finding my own life now, finally, at like 21 years old, I'm like, finally, like I could just be myself and live my own life. No sister to care for, like let my parents figure it out. Yeah. Kind of deal. I sent like some money home now and then to help them out.
I think you're gaining agency now.
Yeah, because I guess I kind of never had that opportunity since I wasn't able to do that at school. So it was like, and then I came back, I met my wife on a movie. Oh yeah, so when I was living in Thailand, I worked in acting. I worked in entertainment. I hosted a TV show. I did some movies and stuff like that, and then
so cool.
Met my wife like on a really low budget American movie. Never saw the light of day, but she was a designer on it. And then yeah, so I met her there, which is what brought me back to LA. I thought I'd never move back to LA. I'm living in Asia for the rest of my life. I loved it out there. But yeah, moved back, and then my dad went back downhill, and so I was like, okay, I'll just assume the business. And yeah, it kind of just became like that. Just became my life. Even though I hadn't chose it, but it was just like, okay, this is what I'm doing.
So what does the day-to-day look like for someone who, were you running the entire jewelry shop?
Pretty much. My mom was there too, but I was like, they weren't doing it as a business. They were doing it as a charity. Like they had done it for so long that their clientele had become their friends, but they weren't doing any of like, what are other people charging for the same job? Or how can we kind of maximize our profit? And I'm thinking, if I'm going to sit here and waste my time doing stuff I don't like, I want to be paid for it, right? Like,
fair.
and I just noticed that like the store here is like charging 20 for something we charge 5 for. And then my dad would be like, no, you can't do that because it's like unfair. And I'm like, you don't get to choose what's fair or not. That's the market that chooses that, right? And there are ways you can bring value to make it, make that your customer feel like that's fair.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And so that's why I brought like some acting into it, right? Like, like you get the watch, you clean it up a little, you shine it up, you package it real nice, you return it, $20 more right there, right? Like it doesn't take much. And then somebody feels good about that. Like, oh, this guy's, he took the extra step and he really cares what he does.
So what was the acting component that you were utilizing in your jewelry career?
Oh man, when I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. But I just pretended I did. I just like, as long as I felt confident, the person giving me their stuff would feel confident. Like when you think about it, right? Like if you look up, like if you Google like watch repair person, right? You're not going to find somebody like me. And cut like 10 years earlier, definitely not somebody who looks like me, right? You think like an older man, somebody who's wise,
some Swiss dude in a suit.
Or like some old Japanese guy, he's like, got really fine fingers and right? And that's not me at all. Like I'm in a t-shirt and a baseball cap all the time, right?
Working with like fine jewelry, right?
Yeah. And give me your great grandma's ring and trust me with it. Right. And so that was like that. But you learn that like, as long as like you just kind of are very clear and direct about what you're going to do and what they can expect, a lot of people will trust you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Honesty and integrity, I feel like, are huge in business. If you have a business that's built on those two core principles, like really creating an incredible customer experience, as opposed to solely just focusing on shareholder value, I think you could build an amazing brand. And at that point, your customers will do the outbound sales for you and refer everyone in.
Oh, yeah.
So walk me through the rest of your career as a professional jewelry shop owner.
Yeah, so I did it for a while, built the business up, doing fairly well, and then COVID hit, and then I had a child like a little bit before that, and so that was like the point where I was like, I don't know if this is what I want to do anymore. Like it was cool when I was like on my own, it's like kind of fast flowing money, kind of exciting job. Yeah. It's a rush. Like you get like an order for like an engagement ring. I run to downtown LA. I talk to a couple guys. It's like a fun hustle, right? Yeah. I now have like 4 or 5 dimes in my pocket. And I'm like, I got $80,000 in my pocket and I'm just trying to get home. Like, it's like
the thrill is crazy.
It's exciting. Yeah. There's a rush to that. That's like super exciting.
Yeah, you're like in a movie.
Yeah. Like, and like you feel like you're this character. And I think you just like, I have something, that nobody else knows about. And how do you hide that secret, Yeah. So it was always this great rush and it was fun. But, when you have a kid, that like risk reward starts to change, right? Then you're like, I don't know. It's not as exciting anymore. It's kind of scary. Yeah. And especially once COVID came around and like, mask, no mask. And I started kind of feeling like maybe this is not what I want to do. I didn't know what I did want to do. I just knew that, okay, there has to be some kind of a change here. And I think, COVID, changing landscape in the neighborhood that we were at because of that, like a lot of businesses closed down. So it started to feel like very kind of, it wasn't as busy in our shopping center as it was before. Started to feel a little bit sketchy. And so I made the really tough decision to just close and then just like kind of work with clientele from home and stuff like that, people that I knew really well. Yeah. And then took on jobs from other shops to work on. So I did that for a while.
How hard was it to make that decision to close your jewelry shop, your family's jewelry shop?
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, it was more hard. The hard part for me was not figuring. I always kind of felt like I'd figure something out. It was mostly like my mom's emotional well-being, because it was like that was her life pretty much. That was her life. That was her like friend group, her social group, and I kind of like forced her into retiring before she was ready for it. But so that was the hard part. I was just like taking that away from her, and then her feeling like, oh, this is a failure. Like, and I'm like, you have to look at it objectively, and it's not a failure, but we're making this decision because it's not a wise thing to do. Like things have to evolve and businesses change.
Yeah.
And the time for this is it's no longer.
Yeah.
And I had to be very practical with her and talk to her about like like business, like the landscape of the jewelry business is different now. Like back in like the early days of what you guys are doing, like sales are very high. Now people buy jewelry at Costco all over the place.
I see.
Our business is like a service business. We don't need to have this physical store to do this business.
Gotcha.
Right.
So I'd imagine, man, it's just so difficult to look objectively at something when you're so emotionally engaged in it. Man.
But I didn't have an emotional connection to it because it wasn't something that I chose, and I didn't really like. It wasn't like I love the store and I love dealing with customers. Like there are some customers that I genuinely enjoyed, but then a lot of them were also kind of difficult, right? Like, and I like the technical work. I didn't like the front of the house. I like to focus on like the problem.
Yeah, when you're a shop owner, you do everything.
You do everything, and like accounting, like that stuff is like.
It's very unsexy, unfun kind of stuff. To be quite honest, like no offense to anybody in accounting out there, it's just not my cup of tea. So you're picking up all these skills, right? That are actually very transferable. And I'm kind of curious to hear like what does the transition look like from professional jewelry shop owner and watchmaker to cybersecurity professional at Microsoft?
Yeah, it's funny because like I had a friend who worked in security, and best friend growing up. We were friends since like kindergarten.
Day one.
Yeah, like
day zero even.
like my best friend from when I can remember. And for like the longest time he was living in New York. He finally moves back to LA. And this is like a few years before I closed my shop. And of course, as like people who are hackers do, he's like hanging out with me in his free time and asking me every question about what I'm working on. What are you doing? Why did you do that? How did you do that? How would you do it differently? How could you do that better? Like always questions. And I'm, always like happy to help him and walk him through it. And then, one day he's like, you should just do what I do. Like, and I'm like, dude, I don't know anything about computers, man. I can't do what you do. Like his name's Terrence, brilliant guy. I don't know anything about computers. And he's like, you don't have to. That's not the game. The game is not the computer. It's a problem that you have to solve, and you know how to solve problems. You just apply it differently. And and it's like, nah, forget it, dude. Like I'm not doing that. Like I'm not touching that. Like that's just too difficult for me. And he kind of kept every time I would talk to him, have dinner, go out for drinks, he'd always like. Try to kind of drop some knowledge on me. Hey, what do you think about this? Or,
planting that seed.
Right? The whole time. And then eventually, like he convinces me to go buy a laptop. And he's just like, dude, I will buy you a computer. Just, I want you to check this out because I think you'll really like this. I'm not letting you buy me a computer, man. Like I'll go buy my own. So I went to like Target, bought a little $200 laptop. And then he's like, yeah, like, go do this, go do that. And you could become a security analyst in like 2 weeks. I'm like, all right, cool.
Okay.
Yeah. 2 weeks later, I didn't know what I was doing still.
So what kind of training program was he going to have to take you from watchmaker to security analyst in 2 weeks?
He just said, check out, like, try hack me and just poke around. And then he was like, gave me a couple things like, oh, like, listen to this podcast. Go check out, like, Black Hills. They have, like, all these free videos. And just, like, kind of just poke around and see what interests you.
Yeah.
And then get back to me. And it took me a while to find that interest. It took me about, like, 3 or 4 months, maybe 5 months before I found the thing that was interesting to me. And then once I found it, like the light bulb went off and I was like, oh, dude, now I know why he wanted me to look into this.
And what did you find?
I found KC7 Cyber. Yeah. So, my friend says you can become a security analyst in 2 weeks. Not happening, right? Like, it was not happening. And I'm like, dude, this guy's been working in this thing, for like 10, 15 years. Like he's got experience. Easy for him to say, right? I go to Reddit and it's like, no, you can't do this.
Yeah.
You got to do help desk for like 10 years. You got to like
CCNA.
Yeah. You got to learn the basics of like networking before you could ever like anybody will ever let you secure their thing. I'm like, oh shit. Like, all right, like I guess it's not happening in 2 weeks, right? Like I'm gonna have to learn these things. So I, fire up to like the Professor Messer, and I'm like, this is the most boring thing. And I'm like, dude, like this guy's telling me that it's like fun and exciting, but like on this end, it was like super boring.
So not at the beginning.
And I'm like, okay, this is not what I want to do, right? Like, but I'd signed up for like the Sans New to Cyber Summit. And so, it pops up on my notifications, and I was just working, and I just kind of put it on in the background, and people were talking, and like I'm like, yeah, good for you. Like, yeah, you did it. You went librarian to cybersecurity. I can't do that, man. I can't study these tests. Like, they're just too boring for me. I'm good at taking tests. I'm not good at paying $500 for a test that's boring, right? Like, I just didn't feel like it was fair,
right? And
it was not interesting enough for me to like, I'm gonna do that.
I gotcha.
Right. So I'm like, okay, I don't have a future in cyber. Like, but anyways. I still kind of continued to play with it just as like a fun hobby. At the summit, this dude Simeon Kakpovi gets on the stage and he's like, I work at Microsoft Threat Intelligence. I built this game. And if you can play this game, you can do my job. And I'm like, oh, wait, what? That sounds interesting. Don't know what threat intelligence is, but I like games.
Yeah.
This sounds like a cool game. I checked it out. And that was the moment. That was the moment. Like, and I wasn't even very good at it the first time. Like, I remember it was like a CTF style. Barely made it through, like they do like KQL 101. I barely made it through that section into the investigation, and it like ended. But it was like, and it just kind of started with it, and it was like this kind of interesting story about like somebody getting phished, and I wanted to find out how it ended. So like that night I went back on, I played it, I completed it, and I was like, oh my God, that was the most fun I've ever had. And at that moment I was hooked.
What was it about the training structure that made it fun? Can you describe the platform for us?
Yeah, so it's like an end-to-end intrusion. It's like kind of log files hosted on ADX. And there's like a guided question set that leads you through this investigation. And the thing that was different about it than like other things that I'd tried, like Try Hack Me, was that there was a story behind it. Right? And so I could connect, hey, former actor, right? I can connect to the story. Yeah. Right? And so like, you could see like this employee clicked a link, right? Downloaded malware, and then all this kind of stuff happened after it. But because like I could connect it to like real people and real things, it made it very interesting and very exciting to me. It was like, because I think like when I was doing Try Hack Me, it was just like, yeah, run commands, you know.
Rote memorization.
But I guess I didn't see it as like a person and an action. And once I made that connection where, oh, this is just like a people problem and not like a tech stack problem, right? That's when it became exciting to me. Because there are people on one end trying to do something to people on the other end. And all this other stuff just kind of happens in between. Yeah. But the people on both ends are what was like, that was the exciting part for me. And yeah, so that was it. That was like, oh, I could do this. Yeah. I could do this. And so I went back, I played every single game. Like I was super obsessed with it. I spent like every single night on that thing. Like I'd be up to like 2, 3 a.m. And back then, like K27 was not very mature. Like I think there are like 30 games now, but back then I think there was like 4 or 5. And so while I waited for the next one, I would just go back and play the data on its own. Like I would just like grab like an indicator and I would see how far can I pivot off of this one thing. Or even if it was just benign, like what can I find tonight? And I would just like go through data. I don't know why, it was just like super relaxing and super fun. Yeah.
So it was just that same level of technical mindset that you had as, a watchmaker, but you were just applying it to a different medium, which was IT, networking, cybersecurity. So you're still scratching that same itch essentially, but how it was done was just a little bit different. So that mindset can be applied regardless of what industry you work in. Like those lessons can still be used whether you're working in cyber or you're working in AI. So like what advice would you give to someone out there who isn't working in a quote unquote technical job that is IT based or networking based or doesn't have years of experience in IT or networking, who might be interested in the concept of cybersecurity and protecting organizations from hackers?
Yeah, this was like, I still have this issue too, because I get really upset when people like, kind of put these barriers in place where they say like, you have to do things a certain way. Like you have to like start like, and cybersecurity is an IT problem and this and that. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think IT is part of it, but cybersecurity is a people problem. right? Threat actors are people. They're not just like random computers just attacking, right? So I think like, don't worry about the technical stuff. If you find something that you love to do, it'll just happen naturally, organically. The learning is the fun part, right?
Yes.
Once you find what you like to do.
Yeah.
But if you start kind of like listening to other people, and I think, you know, the thing about K-7 that worked for me and really connected with me was that they kind of do the foundations or like the fundamentals differently, right? Instead of like looking at it as like, let's learn like, you know, networking, and let's learn like, you know, TCP IP and all this, like, you know, the OSI model and like all the boring stuff first. Like, let's not do that. Let's learn the fun stuff. Let's learn like critical thinking, problem solving, right? Like, let's get right into the action, and then you learn all the other stuff around it, right? So like, once you're already hooked into like, this is fun, it's much more like, you're much more accepting to like, okay, I guess I'll have to learn this part now.
I gotcha.
Because I want to get better at this game.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
As opposed
I
to
like
like, because like my journey would have ended if I didn't find that game. Because like, I don't like learning boring. Nobody wants to do anything boring, right? Who does? Like, I don't know. Maybe some people do. Yeah. And I'm great. It's great that there are people out there that have that mindset. Yeah. But there are other people who just like to do fun and exciting things. Or like, you know, I think like creativity plays a real big role in it. You know, and I think like I think we talked about resilience. Like there are other kind of foundational skills that you can bring to the table that are just as valuable as your kind of quote unquote like IT skills. Right.
So I'm glad that you bring this up, because Sam Altman, he's got a really popular quote where he breaks down the misconceptions of entrepreneurs and people who are growing rapidly. So there's this common misconception that when you're an entrepreneur or a startup founder, or you work at a startup, that you're just overworked and super tired. And while you are working a lot of hours, the reality of the situation is that in an environment where you are interested in the work that you're doing, you're constantly learning, you're constantly growing, those work hours start to disappear. And it becomes more a manifestation of staying in flow. And when you're in flow, I've actually learned through a book recommendation, there have been tons of surveys of people who are actively in flow, like top performing athletes, business people, people across multiple disciplines. And the idea of flow state is actually conceptualized as being as present as you possibly can feel. So depending on the person, that can be in the middle of a sport or art, or for me personally, I love having conversation. That's when I feel like I'm in flow most of the time. And in this book, he teaches you that the more often you can stay in flow, you actually have a significant advantage in terms of how happy you actually are and your ratings of your satisfaction in life. So if you're happy and learning and chasing after what you think is interesting, the hours will disappear. Right. Because otherwise, on the other hand, what do you have? You have hours that were going to disappear anyways. You might as well use them productively.
Yeah, you know, like I'm someone who doesn't watch TV. Like I don't like play video games.
Not even Game of Thrones?
Nothing. I haven't watched TV. I don't even own a TV at home. I haven't watched TV in like 7-8 years. I haven't watched a movie in the same amount of time.
Really?
Yeah. I have zero interest in that.
I think that's interesting. I personally love movies. I feel like it's a way to sort of escape and enter a different universe for a tiny amount of time. And in a way, it's like therapy. Yeah. I love to have my own house where I've got my own little theater. But continue.
I used to be an actor, so I think I have a different perspective on that, right? I see a lot of pain. I see like a lot of takes. I see people getting yelled at. You know? I see like a lot of like, you know, PAs getting in trouble over like little things just because things are not working out and we need to take it out on somebody. Yeah. Like, you know, I see it a little bit differently. My wife works in production still, and so like
perspective is everything.
Her hours are just like insane. Like, you know, I think like people look at like cybersecurity and go, oh, this is like such a hard world to live in. Like, there are many other jobs. There are so many other jobs that are out there that are so much more difficult.
Yes.
And demanding.
Yeah. Food service.
Right? Like, yeah, you work in a restaurant and like...
Unforgiving.
Right? I've yet to have a day, and, you know, knock on wood, working, you know, my new role here at Microsoft, where I ever felt like it was as intense as like a really like holiday rush at my store. Where you have to juggle like 20 things and be accurate, and it relies solely on you not messing up. Like you have no team, right? Nobody to rely on. And if you make a mistake, that is like somebody's like precious heirloom. You've broken their heart and you're gonna have to pay for it. Right. Yeah. So like, yeah, like I think it's very scary when you're on the outside looking in, because I think there are people who try to like sell this like image of like, this is like this impossible problem that we're all working on that everybody has to know the answer to, right? And then like I think everybody who's trying to get in starts kind of overcompensating and try to fill that like all the knowledge. I need to learn everything before I'm ready, right? Like I get a lot of people who ask me questions like, what should I learn next? And do I need to learn Splunk? And I need to learn this tool and that tool. And I'm like, just learn what you want to learn. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have the answer for you. I'm very lucky that I found what I wanted to do. And I knew really early on, I'm just gonna get good at this one thing.
Yeah.
And that was gonna be my, like, it was either gonna work for me or not. Like,
Yeah.
that was it. Like, but I think sometimes it comes down to that too, just kind of knowing who you are and knowing what you want is important and not kind of listening too much to others. Right?
Yeah,
and you have to know
huge.
when. I guess it's like you really do have to know when to take advice and when to like really just go with your own gut.
Yeah.
And that just comes from like your own kind of like ability to kind of take rejection, right? And yeah, and like, I had like, I'll be honest, like when I realized I wanted to work in security, I was like, I'm not going to do a SOC analyst role. Like that's not what I want. I had come up like, so I was playing this KC7 thing. It was like this big passion of mine. But it was just that. It was just like a game. I had never thought it was going to lead to a career. Because all roads still said, certifications and prior IT experience. I'm like, I can't do that. I can't take a step back. I have a family. I can't go backwards and start working like an IT help desk job for a couple of years just to get to here. I'll just, do my job and keep this as a hobby. It's fun. But life is great anyways. So it wasn't until like I met Simeon and then like Wayman Ho was on the platform at the time, Greg Schlomer, in person. They're like, you need to come out and meet us at DEF CON. We need to see who you are, right? Like, I told my wife, we're going to like Vegas. She's like, what are we doing? Like, she has no idea what I'm doing every night. She's just like, you're crazy. You're on the computer every night till like 2, 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Like, I'm having the most fun I've ever had in my life,
Aww.
right? She's like super cool. We all head out there. My kid goes to Vegas, runs wild in the buffets. So I meet these guys and like, you need to do this professionally. I'm like, dude, I can't, man. Like, I don't have any like certifications. I don't have a degree. I don't have any of these things. And like, you don't need to, right? Like, none of those things matter. And like, they helped me kind of put together my resume. They would send me like job descriptions for stuff. And I'm like, dude, no way. Like, that's so hard. And like, no, well, you do this and you can, same thing. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. I could do that. So because they did that, I was like, you know what? Like, these guys have been so generous that my goal is to be able to land like a above entry level role with nothing on my resume except for KC7 Cyber. Like I at that point too, I had found like avenues to take like free like Security Plus certification.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing that. I don't need it. I don't want it. Like I'm gonna do this route is what I want to do. I don't want to be in that bucket with everybody else. Right. I'm gonna do something like my own way. Yeah. Because I want like Simeon to have that story. Right. Like I want Wayman to have that story. I want like us to win together. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
and it's an incredible story. Absolutely incredible story. So my question for you is like, what does the process look like for you gaining reputability by playing KC7? And how does that lead to you eventually finding a role at Microsoft?
Yeah. You know what it was like, I had to kind of become confident enough to start like talking to other people in the community. I think in the very beginning, I was okay. So like, I had my friend, okay, he passed away in June of last year. So like, this is just as I'm starting to really hit my stride. And it kind of really shook me. And I was like, I think I'm done with this. Like, I can't do it. Like, it hurts my heart, like to be on the computer doing this thing that my friend, and I'm just like sitting there in tears, just like, thinking about him. And it was like, I think one night I was just like, oh man, and I just put like a message up on like KC7's like Discord or something. And then Wayman, he's like, do you have 15 minutes to talk? Like, I'd like to talk to you right now. And it was something about like, I think I'm kind of like in this place where I think I kind of like want to end this like journey and stuff like that. And he was like, he talked to me, he took some time out and talked to me, and he kind of convinced me to keep going. Like, and just that little act of kindness was like, okay. And so I started becoming more of like posting on the Discord. When somebody had a problem, I would help them solve it. Yep. And I started like learning, oh, wait, you work at this company and you couldn't solve that? Oh, and I had the answer? I was like, oh, okay, so I think I have something here. And I know like at the time, like nobody knew this platform. It was quiet, right? It was like, it was super small. It was not like, top 1% try hack me or all these other kind of things that everybody, I didn't have the name recognition. Right. But I knew in my heart that the skills that I had were real.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go out and play like CTFs at conferences and just like, I'm just gonna win all these things. And somebody will have to hire me that way. And that's what, I never won, but you know. But I went and I met enough people through that process of going out, and I'm just like, let me open up my laptop, sit next to you, and let's just talk, and let's like work through these problems together. And everybody would be shocked. Like, they'd be like, oh wait, you don't work in security? I'm like, no, man, I do watch repair. How do you know how to do this? I'm like, I just Google and figure it out. I poke around, I look around, and just like, and it just, and it just worked somehow. And that's kind of how it was. Like, I would just like go out and just like talk to people, meet people, get to know them. They would get to know me. And then they would be like, oh, they would refer me to jobs and stuff like that. Like, you should check this guy out, or you should talk to him. I gave my first talk at a conference because I was like, I had signed up for DEF CON, which is like a detection engineering and threat hunting conference. And I was helping some dude like work through a problem. And then we were like chatting. He's like, you should apply for a talk. He's like, I'm on the board of like B-Side San Diego. And I'm like, dude, what would I talk about? It's like, dude, you like go from watch repair to solving these problems. That is like crazy. Yeah. And I'm like, really? Because it doesn't seem that crazy to me. It doesn't seem that different, right? Like it didn't to me, like, you know, it was just fun. So that's how it was. It was just like me, like kind of just coming out of my shell, talking to people, and like starting by helping people, and then kind of just building like a community of friends and support that kind of pushed me to the next step of like, okay, I'm starting to apply for jobs, and like they would like refer me for roles and stuff like that. And then in January, I think like Simeon reached out to me, and he was like, hey, like, you know, you've played a lot of Cases 7. Would you like to help make the game with us? And I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. And that was like a huge opportunity for me as well. Yeah. Because it forced me, like, because Simeon is like the guy, I said earlier, I don't ever say no to anything. Right? Yeah. So it's like, oh, you know, like there's this conference. Who wants to go give this talk? And I'm like, all right, I guess I'll do it. Yeah. Nobody's saying yes. Or like, you know, we need a module for like this month. Who's taking the lead? And like nobody said, I guess I'll lead, you know? And so I just kind of like emerged as like, we have like a group of volunteers, and like really quickly, I just kind of emerged as the leader of the group, just because like, I'll do it. Yeah, right. Your passion for it was showing. Yeah, and then like, but it's like what we talked about earlier. It's like this positive momentum, right? Like once you start doing it, you start, hey, well, I talk to people, I go out to conferences, I'm here to share this like game that I work on, like, right? And then like now people start to know who you are. Yeah. Right? And like, oh, you're the guy who does the Cases 7. Like, I'm doing a workshop. Would you like to come do one? Or would you mind? I'm like, yeah, of course. I'll do that. I'll do the custom game. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll do everything. Right? Because like, and only because like, I didn't think it was like, I wasn't making this like connections like, oh, I'm going to talk to this person. They're going to get me a job. It was just like, I love this game. I just want to share it with everybody. Because I think like the more people who play it, the more people who will love it. Yes. And that's all I care about. Like, I just want to share this like amazing platform because it changed my life. And I believe that if you play it, it will change your life as well. So I just want to get this. And then that is kind of what kind of pushed me towards Microsoft. So like, yeah, so when I interviewed with Microsoft, like if anybody ever goes back and watches that talk that Simeon gave at New to Cyber in like 2023, right? It literally predicted my future. Everything he said in there, like, is what I did, and it came true. And it's like, I go to the interview with Microsoft, and like the technical interview questions are like, oh, dude, I'm playing KC7. Yeah. Like they show me something, like, give me your like analysis and how would you pivot here? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have the cheat code. Yeah. Because I've played so much of this. I've seen this like 1,000 times, and I've gone through this scenario like 1,000 times. I can just like, I can walk you through this like no problem. Yeah. Yeah. That is incredible. So walk me through the interview process for the threat hunting role when, you know, you're previously in jewelry repair. I applied for a lot of positions, and I did like a lot of interviews with roles that I didn't even want. Yeah. Just because I wanted to practice, right? Like I just like, hey, like, you know, it's like we talked about earlier, right? It's like, it's all that kind of, you know, you got to just do it. You get better at things when you do it more often. Yeah. And get so, the reps. Right? And like, I want the harder questions so that I know that next time, okay, didn't answer that one well. How would I answer it next time? Like, most of the times I interviewed with places, they were very boring, to be honest. They didn't excite me. Like, very generic questions, maybe like 1 or 2 good questions about the way I thought. But yeah, just like really kind of like, I could just Google that for you real quick, if you know, if you don't mind. But it's like, it's not like, didn't really excite me. You would say that in the interview? I wouldn't say that. I would never say that. Yeah. I was just always thinking like, oh, I gotcha. I'm not taking this job. I'm not working here.
I see.
Everybody that I met, everybody I had met that I was like connected to loved their job and were super passionate about it, super excited to talk about it. And I just kind of found that like very rarely did I interview with anybody who had that same passion to match mine, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's not where I want to work. I'm already doing this great thing with K7. Yes, I don't get paid for it, but it's like super fun. I get to go out and meet like awesome people and share it. I'm in a good position right now.
And all this time, you're still repairing jewelry on the side. Yeah. Okay, so that's keeping the roof over your head.
Although I am starting to get pressure from my wife at this point, because she's like, "All right, you're spending hundreds of dollars to go to these conferences, like, you know, 'cause I'm paying out of my own pocket for like the flight, for the hotel, all that stuff, right?" And like, so you know, and you keep saying no to these things. You have to take the job, and I'm like, yeah, but it's not the job yet.
Oh, so you were getting offers.
I got an offer and I turned it down. It was like for like a role here in LA, and I'm like, not what I want to do. Again, you know, I was like, that is like an entry level role that somebody could go to a boot camp for. And nothing against that at all. Okay, like I just want to say that nothing against that, but I had already like made up my mind that this is what I wanted to do, and I'm somebody who's like very much into like visualizing things and manifesting what I want. Yeah. Right. And so like I say it and I just say like, this is what I'm going to do. And I make it happen. And I truly believe in that. Like
I do too. It works.
I go like, you know, I'm going to the store, I'm going to get a good parking spot. And I just visualize that the whole way. Yeah. And it doesn't always happen, but on the days it happens, it's like positive affirmation. Like, see, look how much power I have.
I did that.
Right. And on the days it doesn't happen, like you don't think about it, right? It's like, whatever, you know? Yeah. But it's like that, like mind over matter. Yeah. That I always feel like I have that like edge to me that I know like, no matter what, this is what I want and I always get what I want.
And you've reinforced that belief system. So that way, you know, your mindset reinforces the action and becomes this loop of self-belief and confidence. Yeah. That whatever you set your mind to works. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So like, you know, like pre-interview, like I know like a lot of people like will ask like, oh, like what do you do to like, you know, feed the questions to ChatGPT, like go to like the top 20. I did none of that. I would listen to like music that made me feel good. And I would play K7 because that's like, that was my world. Yeah. Like this is what I do. This is what I'm good at. And I will only work in a role that like allows me to do what I'm good at. Like you know, that's all I needed. Yeah, so I'd like play like Kendrick Lamar, and, like some really positive like Bob Marley music, like just
good
like stuff.
Kid, Mad City.
Yeah, and just like okay, now I know what I have, right? Like, yeah, you have people with the IT experience, but like I have like this passion and resilience to me that I don't think anybody can ever match. And so that's what I bring to the table. If that's what you're looking for, perfect, awesome, let's talk, right? Otherwise, like take the other, that's fine. Yeah, we're not a match. Yeah. So I always went in with that attitude, right? So going to Microsoft, it was like, I was so confident. I couldn't have been any more confident going into those interviews. I'm like, I always felt like if you just talk to me, like I will show you that this is for real. Because a lot of people didn't believe me. A lot of people were skeptical. Like I would like interview with some companies and like, you know, I would walk them through like something I built for K7. I would literally see the person like, but I felt like they thought I was cheating. You know, they would ask me like other questions that try to trip me up, and I'm like, okay, you know, you're welcome to challenge me. I welcome the challenge because I am here for the challenge. I'm not here to do the easy job.
Yeah, Jibby, you're an outlier, man.
So yes,
you really are. That's impressive. Because if I were on the interviewing side of the fence and I saw your background and you're answering all these questions with a lot of enthusiasm, and you didn't have the years of experience that we typically see, I'd be like, one, I'd have to try and combat my own internal belief, like, is this even real? But also, two, does this change the way that I should be perceiving talent? And I think that's a hard conversation that a lot of recruiters and leadership need to come to, is that this talent is out there. They just don't have traditional educations with a comp sci degree or end up in IT and earn their CCNAs and network engineers. There are people like you who are living proof that true passion can close any distance.
Yeah, I fully believe that. I feel like if you love something enough, like, yeah, you can make up for a lot in a short amount of time. I mean, and what you said earlier, like I spend all my free time doing this. Yeah. And I love it. And everybody's like, you're going to burn yourself out. I'm like, are you kidding? I am just getting started. Like,
I'm having fun.
Yeah. I think, yeah, just last night, Simeon was like, dude, this is a marathon. And I'm like, Simeon, I've run 4 marathons. Sometimes you just have to push through the pain and sprint. right?
Respect. I've run one and I was like, that was excruciating. I'm not going to run another one for a while.
I've done 4 completely barefoot.
4 marathons completely barefoot? Why?
You know, it was like, I got into barefoot running like after my dad had a stroke. And it was just like, there was this book called like Born to Run. And then I was just doing like just regular running. And there was like a workshop they had at Griffith Park. And there was this old dude, he was like super old, you know, didn't look fit, but he ran without shoes. And he was like the most nimble person I'd ever seen in my life. And I was like, that dude was awesome. Like, I want to be like him.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I just started running barefoot. And it was like, you know what it was? It was like therapy for me. Like I had all this like kind of emotional pain that I didn't know how to express, right? But like, and I would just go run and it would hurt. But like through that kind of physical pain, I would release my inner pain, right? But then I just became comfortable with it. But you just embrace like the process. And you start to like look out for like rocks and stuff like that. And you get into like this flow, right? And then you just become like, it's like this full sensory experience. And it's like, I always equate it to like, you know, when you're sick and you can't taste what you eat, you don't really enjoy food. I can't enjoy running if I wear shoes. I don't feel the earth. I don't feel it on my skin. I don't feel every sensation. I'm not present. Like I don't listen to music, you know, like I want to be completely present in that moment. And so that's why I picked it up. And so I always knew like, yeah, like there's like, you know, like when you talk about like mental strength and like being able to kind of overcome things like that, I always knew like, oh, okay, yeah, like when people would tell me like you can't do IT, I'm like, yeah, but I don't think you know what I'm like, right? I don't think you've met me yet, and I don't think you've walked in my shoes, and I don't think you've gone through what I've gone through in life. And you know, and sometimes I get really upset when people say, oh, you can't defend like what you don't understand, and I'm like, but I mean, you say that working like in security, but like, does that mean that you understand like actually being pressed in life? I was like, has anybody ever jacked you before? like, you know, like, yeah, you can do the IT thing, but like, there are other experiences that people can bring to the table to make up for that. And like, you know, the idea of like understanding things, it's like, it's not really kind of concrete, right? You're making up this like box of understanding that I don't think people like everybody does not have to follow those rules. And threat actors definitely don't have to follow those rules. And that's why they find creative ways in all the time, right? Yeah. And so like, you know, that's like one of the things I really want to challenge is like that idea of like what like the fundamentals really are, right?
You know, I'm thinking back on what you were mentioning about like running barefoot, and you talk about the experience of being incredibly present, like feeling the earth and the sensation among your feet, looking out for rocks. And it immediately flashed me back to like the earlier part of this trip. Like whenever I go on hikes up mountains and on the way down, I try to run the way down because 1, it's quicker, 2, it's really fun. And when I'm usually hiking with people, they don't like when I run just because they think I'm insane. But I was thinking about what you're saying and I was realizing that when I'm running down and it's pretty risky, I am so locked in on the experience of my exact foot placement, my balance, everything, that it becomes like such an engaging experience. And I feel like I'm alive, like I'm in flow again. So I think you just awakened something in me. I'm gonna start running downhill more mountains.
Yeah, I run barefoot in the mountains. Yeah, I go backpacking like with a backpack barefoot. Yeah, and it's the same thing. You kick one rock, you're getting airlifted out, man. You know, something like that, right? So like you do have to be very present and you have to be very mindful. Yeah, and it's almost like you get into this flow state and it's very, very relaxing, and it feels good at some point when you just kind of feel like that. You know, you move and like. Yeah, you kind of get into that, right? And
you're engaged in your being.
And you're just kind of moving around things and you're navigating the world. And you're just like so in touch with it. Like it's such a great feeling.
I love that. Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to touch on is there's this concept that's been popularized recently after Andrew Huberman had David Goggins on his podcast. And he talks about how when you do things that you don't like to do, specifically things that you don't like to do, but you commit to it and you improve and you get better, you actually grow a part of your brain. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it because I'm going to butcher it. But that part of your brain is actually now in a recent study directly attached to your longevity and will to live. So I think in a way, when we commit to doing these very, very hard things, we're actually committing to living a longer life because we're establishing the mental and emotional resilience to get through the hard times. So I see that in you, and I love that. And it's also why I like to set really big goals. Like physically. Have you heard of the concept of a misogi?
No.
So I think you'd like this, but it's popularized recently by this guy named Jesse Itzler, but it's the Japanese concept of setting one really, really big goal at the beginning of the year that ends up setting the tone for your entire year. So for me, a couple years ago, it was like hitting 1K club. So deadlift, squat, bench, over 1,000 pounds cumulatively between my 1 rep max. And then this year is running a marathon, even though I hate running. I've always hated running. And then, years after this, I want to try and run an Ironman. We'll see how that goes. But I feel like you're also practicing this. Like you set these really big goals and they become all encompassing and you pursue them relentlessly. And that sets the tone for every other facet of your life. And I think that's such a positive example to be around because think about the people you're influencing just by being you. You share your story. Someone's going to listen to this. They're going to be like, I think he awakened something in me. I want to be like that. I want to be alive. Yeah,
I think also sometimes you just need to hear that it's possible.
Yes.
Right? I think that's like the most important part is like, and I think that's what I got from going out like to meet many people in like the community is like you start to learn that people come from all sorts of different backgrounds and it's not like it is like on Reddit or like in these little kind of isolated bubbles. Like there are actually a lot of interesting people out there who've done like really interesting things and they just like kind of happen to fall into security, right? And so it was like, once you kind of come to that realization that, oh yeah, like it is possible, it makes you believe in yourself, right? Because, okay, I guess like, because there definitely were times when I was like, it isn't going to happen. You send out like 200 resumes, all like instant rejections. Like, and I understood that, right? Like, who's going to hire me? Like,
you need those though.
Yeah, I would not hire myself. Like if I saw myself on paper, honestly, right? Like, I wouldn't. Like, that's like, it was a reality and I knew that. And, but meeting somebody who has a cool story, then you're like, oh, I can do another 100 resumes, get me through like another 2 months, right? That kind of thing, right?
That's so
another,
huge.
Another good story, okay, keep going, right?
Yeah,
keep going.
It's like the concept of the 4-minute mile, right?
Yeah.
People thought it was impossible for millennia. And then one person does it. Within the next year, 4 more people do it. So it wasn't a lack of physical talent or training or discipline. It was a lack of belief. So wild, absolutely so wild.
So what marathon are you doing?
So I ran the Oakland Marathon.
Oh, you ran it already?
So I ran it in March and I completely bonked it. Mile 22, glycogen normal. Completely like destroyed. I only got 2 hours of sleep because I was so anxious about the experience. I conceptualized this huge grand experience of running a marathon. And you know the story of the marathon, right? Like, the soldier who delivers the message from Marathon to Athens, then dies. Kind of crazy. But really, the main reason why I ran the marathon is because I didn't want to run a half marathon. I never liked the idea of running or doing half of anything. Like if I'm going to send something, I'm going to send it all the way.
Yeah. No, I fully understand how that feels because like I'm the same way. Like I don't want to do something I know I can do. What's the point of that? Like it's not fun or exciting to me at all to like. So I used to like do a lot of backpacking, like in the Sierra and different places in the summer. This was like pre-kid, a lot more free time, right? That was my adventure, and I would be like, I am picking the hardest route because I have to like go in there, not knowing if I'm going to make it. I might have to turn around. Like I don't want to do something that I know I can do, and if it's something I know I can do, I got to make it harder on myself. So what you bring less stuff? No shoes. Like how can we make this more difficult? We got to increase this challenge
on your hands next time.
because otherwise I don't feel alive. I'm like, oh, I'm just doing something like I guess I'm like a little bit like nuts, I guess, in a way that I want to do things that are hard.
I'm right there with you, brother.
Yeah.
Something about setting the big goals and seeing if you're capable of doing them. It changes your mindset. So I think when I first started setting these big goals, I just wanted to see if I was capable. And then after I proved to myself that I could with enough time, enough focus, enough dedication, after you accomplish enough goals, you establish confidence. And you start having this inner belief that's unshakable. And now I'm at this place where I'm like, whatever goal I set myself to, I'm going to hit that.
See, that's how I feel too. I feel like that with everything. Like whatever I want, I will get. Like, I will just kind of wait it out and work and make my way there.
That's so sweet.
And the same thing, right? It's like, but it starts with like little things. And it wasn't always like that. I would do like regular backpacking trips, but they just got boring. So how do you make it more interesting?
I love that.
Like we gotta get off the trail now. Find your own way, And then it was like I went, and I think that's when Case 7 kind of filled that void because there was one trip I went on, and I'm like going to Mount Whitney, but I'm doing like this other path.
You've done Whitney. I really want to.
It was not on trail, and I'm on this like talus field. And I'm like, dude, one slides, and I'm dead. And I'm not going home to see my kid. And at that point, I'm like, I think I'm done with
You
this.
dial that back a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm done with this. And I was like, that was my adventure. I had nothing. And so I was just at home bored until I found KC7. That was like my new Mount Whitney. Like it was my new exploration because it was this whole new world that I got to explore, right? And learn about. And it was like exciting and it was challenging, right? And
scratching that itch, man.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much.
That became my adventure. And
so
it continues to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see where KC7 grows. I want to support the community as well as I possibly can. I want to embed that in my own training system for my own company. Like, as you know, I run a managed SOC and we protect, hundreds of other people at this point, eventually thousands. And I want to train up the team and standardize on like a KC7 pathway where I can take someone from zero to hero, essentially. But I want to do it in a way that's like engaging for them. Like one that is just like, it's story-based, it gets them alive, gets them present and excited to learn. I think that's the main part. So that was the exact reason why I left NASA. So I had this background as a restaurant manager and I loved the interaction. Like I would see hundreds of people in a day sometimes. And even though they're these tiny interactions of just like, hey, how are you doing? What kind of beans do you want?
Yeah.
Like I can learn about someone, see like the tiny reactions, micro reactions in their face, like see and feel the emotion they were feeling, try and match them at that level. And it would be such a gratifying experience to like improve someone's day on the tiniest level. And doing that hundreds of times a day, it was like multiple levels of satisfaction, just like happy. And then eventually, like I'm at NASA and I'm just heads deep into the logs. And while that does have its own merit and it does scratch a certain itch for me, the longer I was at NASA, the more I realized I had a bigger itch to connect with people. And that's where I found the career of like solutions engineering, where I got to work at the intersection of the technology and the business. And that's how I ended up at Sophos and then eventually at Cisco, designing solutions for like multi-billion-dollar companies. I think it's important for people to hear that and realize that your passion and your interest will take you farther than anything else will. And you'll be so much more happy for finding the alignment between what you want to do and what you get paid to do and what the world needs. So like that concept of Ikigai, have you heard of that?
No.
I'll send you some information.
Yeah, you did send. I need to do some reading to catch up here.
Well, you're more of a school of life kind of person.
Yeah.
And
I do like to read.
Yeah.
I do. I just haven't had. I just like. No, I'm not gonna say I had. I haven't found time for it. I've like read like a bunch of books on like childhood education.
Yeah.
So I had a kid. I don't know anything about that. I don't want to mess him up.
Responsible adult.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that, you kind of just approach cybersecurity and learn everything else as you go. But when it came to like raising your own child, you took like the theory base. So I think the lesson there is to remember that there are times and place to approach it with theory and other times and place where you can just be constantly chasing your own passion.
Yeah. And I think the reason for that is because like with the kid, it's like, there are no resets, right? Like, I don't know. I always kind of felt like...
No lab environment you can decommission.
Like if you mess up, you might scar this person for life. And that's what you have to live with, right?
Yeah.
Right? And so like, I don't know, maybe that's not true. Maybe, kids are more resilient or like they don't have as good memories as I thought, I think, but...
You're very thoughtful.
But it was just like a pressure of mine. I think just, like I didn't want to be like that dad, I wanted to be a good dad. Like I wanted like my kid to grow up in a very kind of positive environment and,
good man.
Yeah.
I want the exact same thing.
Yeah, your kid will.
I think the advice that I've heard from all the parents I've had on this podcast is not a matter of if you're going to traumatize your kids, it's how much are you going to traumatize them. So like I've just learned so much about being on this journey and I want to provide as much value to people who are interested in the field.
Yeah.
So getting back to the tactical, like what advice would you give to someone who wants to go from zero to hero, little to no technical knowledge to working as a professional cybersecurity threat hunter?
You have to love it. You just have to love it. Like, I think there's this thing where like there's all these different titles within the whole like kind of security space, right? You can't think about the title. You just got to think about what thing do you like to do the most, and that's really all it comes down to. Once you identify what it is that you love, then it just happens organically.
Yeah.
Right. And you just start like pursuing it, and you enjoy it, and you keep doing it. And I think like that's the hardest part is finding that thing that you really do love, because it is like there are so many cool things to play around with, right? Because like I love like forensics. I love all sorts of like kind of problems to solve, right? But like, this is how I ended up. But I mean, part of it is like having to match also just like there's a technical aspect to it, and there's also an artistic aspect to it.
Yeah.
And that's what I've learned on the job, right? Like, you can chase like 1,000, like you can go down like 1,000 rabbit holes, but you have to have that, like, which one? That's not a technical problem. That is like an artistic problem. Or how far? When do you pull back? When have you gone too far? There are like little nuances that happen within the game, right? That you have to figure out. And that's like that balance of like art and technique.
Yeah.
And you know, and like that technical skill. So I think like to be like, if you want to get into like a threat hunting role, it's just to remember that like, part of it is like spending a lot of time in log files. Part of it is understanding like threat intelligence and like kind of threat actor behavior and motives, right? Because it is like understanding your adversary and what they could possibly be doing, what they would want to be doing, where they could go. Yeah, like it's like, it seems like that's like a high level problem, but it's like, it's like with any other problem, if you just kind of like unpack it into like smaller and smaller steps, then you can figure it out, right? And of course I will always say like the best way to learn threat hunting is to play K27. Because you will just, that's like, you just hunt through the logs. Like I went from like having, just doing watch repair. And then I get into this role at Microsoft, all right? And they didn't give me any training, right? Like I'm just like a week in and they're like, hey, we have like this thing, you want to check it out? And I'm like, sure. Never worked a day in cybersecurity in my life. Let's take a look. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I was just like, you know what? I've played K7. I will take 10 through all the different tables to find out what data is in each and every one of them. And then once I did it, I was like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Because again, I've done it 1,000 times. And yes, K7 is an ADX, but like you could apply that across the board into any like other tool.
It's the skill,
it's the
methodology.
It's the mindset. So like the recognizing something is out of place. And once you recognize it, how can you grab that piece of evidence and expand on that to learn more about it?
Yeah.
And that's all it is. And like Simeon gave me that advice early on, and it changed the way I approached things like fundamentally.
Yeah.
And it made me be able to connect what I was doing in the cyberspace with the way I approach watch repair, which was like, I was like everybody else, like, oh, like I thought I had to learn like a million tools to be successful at this. And he said, don't worry about the tool, it's the mindset. And you know, I'm like, dude, it seems so simple, but I just needed somebody to tell me that because that's the way I did watch repair.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have a lot of tooling. Like, you know, you don't need a lot of stuff. It's like, you know, the profession's like hundreds of years old and you like watch like YouTube and people have like a tool for like every task. You don't need that. Like, you just need like a tweezer or two, a couple screwdrivers, and you can fix pretty much anything. Yeah. Just think around your problem, right?
It reminds me of your initial experience where you take the Watchmaker training, right? And you go back and you have this first client who's like, hey, can you fix this ring for me? And you take the torch to it, accidentally mess it up, and you have this feeling of like, oh, I don't know what to do. Yeah. Like, who am I to think this? Like that imposter syndrome. But you find a way to battle back, like you persevere through the imposter syndrome, and you commit to the learning process after that. I think that's just the path to a successful life right there. Like, steady seas never made strong sailors. And you gotta be really, really good at sailing in some treacherous situations, but you don't always start off, you know, facing 100-foot waves. Like, you get on the beach, you feel the shore, then progressively you take on bigger and bigger waves, and before you know it, you're sailing through the Drake Passage, man.
Yeah. And that goes into like the whole like no technical background into it. Yeah, like you just, nobody's gonna get mad at you for trying. You know, if anything, people celebrate that. Like that's what I realized. Like people thought what I was doing was cool. Like, oh wow, that's awesome. Like you're here doing this, like awesome. You know, and I think like once you kind of step out of that box and just challenge yourself in that sense, you'll start to see that. And I think people, if people are looking, because like a lot of people do come at and ask me like, oh, I'm also like from a non-technical field and want to get into cybersecurity. And I will always say the same thing. Well, yeah, what do you like? You know, find that and then get back to me. And I'll maybe like push in the next direction. But
I love that.
You really got to find what you like first, and then go for it. Just do it. Like, it's like, it's scary, but like the scary part is what's gonna like, that's that dopamine. You know, once you get that scary thing out of the way, you're like, I can't wait till I get to the next scary thing. Yeah. Right?
So something I want to dive deeper in there is that your advice is find what you like. There's this common misconception, especially for people who are earlier in career, like, how do I find my passion? Like, how do I know what I'm supposed to do with the rest of my life? And it actually goes back to the snowball effect. You're not gonna realize what your passion is standing still. You need to try a bunch of things find what interests you through the act of trying something out, realizing that really wasn't for you, and then eventually after trying enough things, you'll key into what you really did enjoy, and then just chase that.
Yep.
So you don't find mastery and passion at the beginning, you find it in the process.
That's so true. Yeah.
So a couple more questions here for you. You've taken a bunch of training. Like you've done KC7, you've done CompTIA, you've done like anti-siphon, you've also done Try Hack Me.
Yeah.
How would you compare the varying learning platforms out there for cybersecurity?
I think like, for me personally, like, I like just being thrown a problem and like no guidance. Right? Like I like just like being left to my own devices and trying to figure it out for myself. I know a lot of people aren't like that. And like people like to have like, I need some help and some direction, and that's cool. But for me personally, like I don't really enjoy Try Hack Me. I find it to be too easy. Because it's like it just kind of holds your hand through the whole thing.
Yeah.
With like anti-siphon, like they have like a cyber range.
Yeah.
And it is just a problem. Right? Here's a forensics thing, go find the flag. And they might give you a little hint, and then you're on your own. And I like to learn through the process of like trying to figure out that, like, okay, well, what is this first of all? Let me Google this, or let me ask ChatGPT, and and start to unpack what it is I'm looking at.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the most effective way for me to learn.
Yeah.
So I like the platforms that don't give you very much.
Yeah.
So like even like when I joined Microsoft, they're like, do you want to shadow some people and like start to like, learn how we do these things? Like, I think I'd rather just be given a problem and like try to figure it out and just like ask a million questions about it, like when I get stuck.
Rare breed, man.
Yeah, and so like like I am very much into like the hands-on in the sense of like literally hands-on, like like without the direction.
Have you tried PWK or like penetration testing with Kali Linux?
I've done some of that, like through some of the anti-siphon ones they do that, and some of the CTS I played, Hack the Box. I don't enjoy hacking. I don't enjoy that side. I really love log files. And I think this goes back to like acting. And I think this goes back to repairing watches, right? Because it's like, it's that story that the files tell me. And I don't get that story. Like I don't get to create the story when I like hack into something. And maybe some people can see it that way. It just doesn't click in my brain as being exciting or like rewarding.
I gotcha.
Right? But like when I grab like one indicator, and I can just blow that into like, this happened, and I make that story.
Yeah.
And I get to tell that story. It goes back to that whole acting thing, right? Like, it's like going through a script that has no life to it. You build the character, you give it life. And it's the same thing. You have like, an anomalous file here, but how do you give that life? Why is that important? What does this mean? That part is like the fun part for me. Like, I love that so much.
No, that's so awesome. So a couple more questions here for you, Jibby. One of them is, like, what's your craziest or favorite story from the industry?
I think, for me, it's always going to go back to like Simeon's talk. Because I go back and watch that every now and then. I'm like, I cannot believe that he came up with this platform and knew that it was going to be like this. Before like anybody else did.
Yeah, he's a visionary.
Yeah, he really is. And I think like, like a lot of people like to look at me as like this anomaly. But the only thing that makes me different is that I'm the only one who like fully bought into what he talked about. Yeah. Like everybody else kind of maybe thought it was kind of cool and did a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I'm like the only person to like drink all the Kool-Aid and like, I believe you and I'm going to do exactly what you said. And it worked out really well for me. And I feel like if more people took that, I think it would work out really well for them too.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Like, it like everything, like word for word, like I will watch that thing and I will like cry, just like, this dude changed my life because he just like saw this stuff.
Yeah, he's like Nostradamus. He just predicted the future.
It really did. It really did. Yeah. It's,
oh,
it's
man.
Like,
I can't wait for Simeon to see this. It's gonna be awesome. Shout out my guy, man.
Yeah.
So last one here for you. Like, what would you say is the greatest piece of professional advice you've ever received?
I get a lot of good advice from my friend Wayman Ho, who also worked at Microsoft and also did KC7. The best advice he gave me was that like, when you apply for a job, you get to choose the job as well. And it didn't occur to me until he said that. Again, sometimes things are like, seem so simple, but you don't think about it because you're just so like in this like, tunnel vision of like, I'm gonna get a job in cybersecurity. And him saying that to me made me, it allowed me to kind of zoom out and like think about that's true, and think about what do I want. Well, I should just get what I want. But if he hadn't said that to me, I might not have had like the confidence or like the even thought of trying to pursue something big. I might have just been like, well, any job, I'll just take it, just to get my foot in the door, which is like everybody says, right? Like, but when he said that to me, it was like, yeah, I guess I didn't think about that. Like, that never occurred to me that you could also choose, or like that I, as somebody who has nothing to offer on paper, could say that. But because he believed in me and that he said that to me, I was like, oh yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, I'm gonna do that, right? Like, so sometimes you just need something like that, right? Yeah. And that was like a really great piece of advice. It's like it allowed me to kind of like focus in on what I wanted to do, and it allowed me to kind of like stay the course when things were going my way. Yeah.
Sometimes one person's belief can, at the right time, when someone needs it, can completely alter a life. And I've seen this over and over and over again. So shout out Wayman, shout out Simeon, like y'all are out here changing lives.
Yeah, they are. Like, you know, I get very emotional. Like Thanksgiving, like I'm like, I wake up and I'm like crying. Like, you know, I have this amazing life. I mean, it's not like my life was terrible before, but I have like this I get to wake up and like play the greatest game every morning, right? And like this incredible gift that these like random strangers just did, you know, like, and they didn't know me at the time. They didn't, you know, but they spent their time and they made this platform and they worked on it and they reached out to me. Like they did all this stuff out of the kindness of their heart. Yeah. Right? Just to like change my life. And it's like kind of like, it's what pushes me to like, to work hard, to like, you know, to help the next person. Yeah. Right? Because like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. And I want more people, you know, to have this story. Yeah. Right? That's like my goal. Like, you know, I want everybody to work in cybersecurity because it's such a fun job. But I want everybody to start out like the way I did, where it was fun from the beginning. And I hate when it's like a painful process. Yeah. Because it shouldn't be.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be. Yeah. So I love that. I'm very much aligned with the vision. That's actually the impetus behind why I've been living on the road for the last 4 months. It's because I want to share all this knowledge and show people that cybersecurity is interesting. There are so many diverse paths just to get in, and then even more diverse paths that you can jump back and forth and find your own niche, find your own subspecialty. And just like you, Jibby, man, I might still be wrapping burritos or delivering pizzas right now if I'd never hopped on Reddit that one day and discovered the Stuxnet worm. Yeah. So this has been an incredible experience. I thank you so much for the time.
Man, you too, man. I thank you.
Perfect.
Man, thank you so much.
Dude, this is awesome. Thanks for tuning in to KO's Launchpad, where cybersecurity meets opportunity. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others on their cybersecurity journey. Stay curious and keep charting your course to success. Until next time.